Professor Jan Klakurka and Professor Bill Irwin. And Jan's background spans 20 years in consulting and industry, most recently as Director of Corporate Planning and Development, now as Assistant Professor at Huron University College and longstanding sessional lecturer at Rockland School of Management, University of Toronto. Jan's research interests are directed toward the intersection of strategic planning, lucid foresight, and governance. Having led end-to-end initiatives at Fortune 500 and public sector clients, Jan energetically shares his holistic experience.
I've saved a bit for today as well.
With students and with us in experiential settings. Jan is a chartered director, chartered professional accountant, and certified management consultant. And I would like to go on and introduce Bill too, please.
Do I have to stand up?
No, you can sit.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bill Irwin is an assistant professor at Huron University College in the Department of Economics and Business, where he instructs in the area of management and organizational studies. He also instructs program and policy evaluation at Western University in the Department of Political Science in the Master's in Public Administration program and educational evaluation in the MED program at the Faculty of Education. Dr. Irwin's research interest centers on issues of policy, leadership, and community engagement. He's interested in exploring models of program and policy evaluation, focused on qualitative evaluation and on outcome and impact analysis, with principal interest focused on the interplay between institutions and community. And so, do you think you have a story?
No, that's the title.
All right, you can read your own abstract, and the title is At the Intersection of Consulting, Research, and Higher Education. Thank you.
We'll have to go back to that. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you so much for that introduction and for welcoming us, Dr. Irwin, Bill, and I to the conference today. We unfortunately are a little bit tired and jet lagged because we did have a layover and haven't been here like many of you since Tuesday. We had a 2-hour layover or a 2-hour delay in London and a 2-hour delay, missed our flight. We got the last 2 seats on the standby list to come to Orlando and got here at about 1 a.m. Last evening or this morning. So I'll try to keep the energy up as high as possible. We'll keep it a little bit light today, if that's okay. We have a formal presentation that we'd like to take you through. We'll see how far we get with this. But I guess we did have a chance to sit in on the excellent session this morning on the DBA program that one or two of you are a part of here, and I think it was a wonderful experience. It touched on a number of the subjects, I guess, that Dr. Gill and Malaki were experiencing with the evolution of that program. And I think as a consultant, someone that spent time in one of the big four, I don't have to tell you which one, but Deloitte's back in for a number of years, and I've since been an internal consultant and advised at the corporate level. I think those are those individuals and the relationships that we can develop as the consulting academic can now be can be very influential in informing the type of research that we undertake and in assisting our students. I think this morning, maybe one of the differences, I guess, between this morning's presentation and the environment that Bill and I come from is we both teach at a small liberal arts university in London, Ontario, which is about at the midway point between Toronto and Detroit. So we have Blue Jays fans and Tigers fans, if you're a baseball fan, at our school, and we're predominantly teaching undergraduates. So what we're in the process of doing today is to evolve that program to instill in each and every student that goes through the program the experiential learning that I think comes with undertaking live consulting projects. Many of you have sampled those in some of the courses that we teach, and that can again be a wonderful place to build relationships with source of data, source of case study and insight. So I think that that's kind of what I think you'll see this afternoon. We can get into that. All right. So there's a couple similarities, I guess, between the two of us. We didn't necessarily, as I think the bios maybe spoke to, didn't come about this by the direct route. So I think a number of you are maybe straight through the academic route, and a number of others have experienced some enlightened moment, I guess, when you want to touch both sides of the get into the research and understand what a client needs in a real life setting, and also inform and help to make your students that are in front of you, that much more enriched in terms of their overall experience. So Bill and I both have about 20 years. You've got a few more than me. There's a few more gray hairs than I do. But we have 20 years in industry, and I think that is one of the places that we've been able to leverage for the benefit of the students, for the benefit of our research in terms of ongoing interaction with particular clients in a consultant setting. So let's see. I'm going to start us off, I guess, and if this will do it. Yes. And there is some research. I'm not sure. How many of you in this room are consulting in an external setting? Do a little poll. A few of you. Okay. So,
I will.
there you were. Okay. Once. Okay. So certainly this is what I found, and I still teach part-time as well as does Bill across the way, a course in consulting, a number of strategy courses at Rotman in Toronto. And I find that, consulting is one of those nebulous words. It's traditionally referring to an external assessment, services provided by professionals. Sometimes as I've made my move into academia, one of the challenges is to broach the, what does it mean to be a professional versus what does it mean to be an academic and undertake research. So I think certainly that something I keep in mind. I think certainly consulting may be the promotion of some kind of, technical or organizational innovation. And this is a little bit of background, I think, in terms of how the consulting academic can approach, obtaining new work outside of academia to augment, to supplement. And there's lots of issues around, fee structures and how you're going to interact with your university. I think one of the questions that was answered very nicely this morning about the impact of IP or in these types of situations certainly should be top of mind for individuals like us. And then consulting has been added to the list of, at least at our school and a few others, the list of activities that can support your tenure in terms. That's the predicament or situation that I'm in. So certainly, I'm undertaking research in some of the aforementioned areas, but also want to continue to as was done down here in the Tampa area, augment the case studies that are available. So I might take you through one or two of those.
I'm just going to do an intersection here, and because we're presenting tomorrow, so Jan's taking the lead today, and I might take it tomorrow. But when Jan said on the third point, consulting has been added to the list of activities to support tenure at some schools, I would say at ours begrudgingly. All right, and especially as he began by describing where our full-time academic work is at. It is a liberal arts university, and many of our colleagues don't understand that intersection between consulting work and the classroom. So there's sometimes a bit of a challenge there.
Yeah, certainly that the challenge comes, I think, in not having been in the client setting, being able to understanding that the bias that you want to eliminate to the greatest extent possible in the research setting sometimes is it's a known, it's an expected, and it's something that you have to work around in terms of your client engagement. So certainly understanding the bias and understanding that as a consultant, you're not necessarily approaching the situation from a very narrow perspective of your particular research space that needs to be comfortable operating in a cross-disciplinary environment, and your clients expect the 33,000 unique situations of what is it going to take to make things happen in their environment or in their organization. So I find that one of the things that I think is a constant struggle in terms of helping to educate or identify the reasons why a point like this might be useful for across in other departments, at least at our school, is that sometimes the outcomes are innately biased, and it's reliant on the systems and processes that you put in place to manage those, to ensure that you can assist clients with the deliverables that they're intending, provide the experiential learning experience for the students, and then as well draw the implications and forms of research. Now, I guess the next point, and Bill can talk to this as much as I can, there are a couple different models that we've run across in terms of how academic consultants work in the market, and one that I found that's fairly recent shows that academic consulting kind of fits into three categories: opportunities, commercialization, and pure research. I guess from my perspective, the opportunities that I see coming across my desk are those that are built into relationships that I've established for a number of years in my previous life. So I guess I would probably fit in the opportunity space. As opportunities come through, I can decide if they're going to be informative, if they're going to be providing the experience in terms of consulting experience for my students, for myself, and inform the research. Whereas I think the latter two are areas that I haven't played at, particularly at this point. What do you think, Bill?
I'd like to offer just a slightly different thesis here, if I can. But first, in the interest of full disclosure, Jan mentioned we both have 20 years experience plus before full-time work in the academy. Mine was in the public sector. So I was a manager in public sector organizations my whole career. Lucky enough to start in my 20s. When I was 48, I asked someone earlier about the DPA, was it a midlife crisis? For me, it was. So 48, I did my PhD. My wife was happy it was that and not a blonde and a red sports car. But anyways, and got into this work through that channel. I see this intersection between consulting and academia, and I do consulting right now, filling three gaps, serving three purposes. So he's talking about it at the individual level. Let's talk about it in terms of the level of the community. And the first is the students and the benefits they get from having a practitioner, theorist in the classroom. And we can talk a bit about that. And we hopefully will have time. The second is to the business and client themselves in terms of what we can bring a different kind of approach to it, and I think we'll speak a bit about that. And the third is to ourselves as academic and to the academy, the institutions that we work for, and something different we can bring to it in a lot of different ways. And if I can be really crass and say one of those ways is we offer a competitive advantage that our competition, which is other universities, don't offer in some ways, and students recognize that. But I think there's more. I think there's an energy that we can bring to it. So as Jan said, I don't disagree with the 3 points at the last bullet of the previous slide. I just want to add those points as well. And I think that's something that in terms of the paper we're structuring around this talk will be explored.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, certainly. I think when I think to this triumvirate of parties that are involved, the consultant, the client relationship that is, or the business that you're consulting to, the academic themselves, and the beneficiary of higher education. I think they come at their viewpoint of issues can somewhat be divergent. So what I see is that in my discussions with clients that I have at, I guess I don't know if I should mention all names, but some fairly large billion-dollar clients where I've undertaken consulting with them and then brought them in to do what I call the real-life consulting project at Rotman. These kind of organizations, they need me to be able to see predominantly have an understanding of their business. They need for me to have some analogous stories that I can tell when I'm in meetings with them, and so that if I'm conducting the interviews with their organizations, if I'm putting students or colleagues in front of their people, that they can understand that I'm going to be asking the right questions about their business. So certainly, I think the high-level understanding of and knowledge of business is what I think is important at the client level. For the researcher, you need to get your question salient enough, I guess, that you can actually go about undertaking data gathering and testing activity to substantiate a question. If you're staying too high level, it can, I guess, shoot you in the foot in terms of you're not able to conduct the research, you're not able to gather the data, and I guess understand the data and understand the implications. There's too many moderating variables, those types of things. If you need to look at it from the third part, would be again the student perspective, and I think the students are the ones that sit kind of in between in terms of their experience. Do they understand the high level? Not necessarily yet. Do they understand the details, the research methodology? Perhaps not. So I think when we think, at least at Huron, about this practice research gap, I'm not sure if you've identified that or have techniques yourselves that you may employ, but certainly it's something that consultants in general need to strive for objectivity, with the knowledge that they're supporting often specific business decisions that clients undertake, and that can be in itself issue, a bias. There's certainly those out there that suggest that the status quo silos may not themselves be effective. So this, in order to put something in the middle of that triangle between us as consultants, us as academics, and us helping to inform the next generation of those types of individuals. Is it simply something that we can manage and put in place? We'll talk a little bit towards the end of the presentation. It will be available if you so desire to have that. And there are those schools that have put in place policy to alleviate bias. Certainly, if you can get a community of practice together, there's those educators like Tima Bansal and gang that suggest that if you put together research councils and Delphi's, those kinds of things, you can actually alleviate some of these disconnects. So I think that is certainly something that we want to keep in mind, and we're attempting to do as we build out a new Institute of Governance and Ethics at our school.
I'm just going to speak to the third point for a moment here as well. And I'll talk, I think in large measure what we want to do today, and I'm going to start introducing it now, is a bit of reflective practice. And so a couple of things I'm currently engaged in outside of the university, outside of the academy, and in the community, and some of these are paid, have really informed the practice in the classroom. I provided those, as Jan was alluding to, those genuine, authentic learning moments for the students. And one of the things I'm currently doing is I've done a series of strategic plans for municipal governments, and I've just been asked to do another one. That provides an opportunity when I talk to students around how this work unfolds, and I extend that into a volunteer capacity in the neighboring community. I now have a business government policy class that is working with the community as volunteers to help them with their first economic development plan. So there's an extension there. We're using consulting practices in the classroom. These are undergraduate students, and they're going to help write the community's first economic development plan. And we just went through a series of consultations, focus groups, and research with local business, which they led. And I was excited. Exciting for them, exciting for me, and I have to say that finally, or maybe because we have a good dean, exciting for the institution. And that's a big part of it. That's one point of intersection. Another one is, and this is more personal, one of my areas of research is program evaluation performance metrics. I'm pretty hot on that. I don't know, some people get excited over statistics, but I do. And I'm doing work with public libraries. in terms of changing from quantitative to qualitative measures. That's paid work. And then the Ontario Library Association has engaged me in some research to do something through the academy. So I'm using it as pure research dollars, not getting any salary out of that. That picks up on that work. The challenge with that, and especially that second point, as Jan stated, is where's that ethical boundary? And so that's something we're trying to work through here, trying to understand. We think we know where it is. And again, I offer, this is probably the second cutting or caustic comment on some of our colleagues. They want to define it for us. So there's a challenge here, kind of a bit of a minefield that we're navigating through.
I thought it's an interesting dilemma. I guess you could debate it. Certainly, Bancel, I guess, was suggesting, and it came out pretty unequivocally, that the individual is not capable of, being objective in that sense and alleviating the bias. So there's certainly those activities, but as the consultant academic, it often feels that, certainly as the person performing the project management activity, the person that's involved in and having a high-level understanding with the client of the strategic nature of the challenges, and then trying to, source out where, either live consulting projects, paid consulting projects, or pro bono, or where pro bono projects for the experiential learning can happen. It's you need to have an appreciation for those lower level issues. So certainly, it does feel often that it's in one's mind. I harken back to, I guess, my accounting background and think documentation, which is certainly something that also itself, in terms of how we present material to the outside market, impacts how we act as consultant academics. So certainly, to help bridge the bias, can we document, can we follow policy, and can we set some of these new innovative policies? We may have misplaced the slide, but we'll get to that later towards the end. So certainly that is one of the things we keep in mind. I think the last one was kind of interesting, that there is some research that says, and again, that there is a positive contribution for being out there in the market and just understanding what's going on with the market, what clients are facing. There's a management concept which some of you may have heard of called management by walking around. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah, so in management by walking around, I guess you get a sense of what's happening on the shop floor. Whether I'm not necessarily saying that I fully endorse it, but I think as an academic consultant, pardon me, Bill, maybe I can ask you to see another time. As an academic consultant, I don't know if I did anything, my apologies. So I think that when you actually meet with clients and find out about their issues, find out about what potential projects could inform your research, where they need assistance in terms of conducting appropriate surveys or developing methodologies that are tailored to their organization, and certainly applying the kinds of things that you've been doing in the office. That can assist with, I guess that can assist with alleviating some of the gaps. All right, so where are we on this one, Bill? Thank you. Bill gave a little bit of reflective practice. I guess I made a couple additional notes that, because I've been speaking with a few people at the conference now, even over the last 12 hours, just in terms of, that have come from many places in terms of their experience overseas and some of the things that have been talked about the blend, the intersection of these topics as well as the cross-disciplinary nature of the conference. So I thought I'd bring out a couple international opportunities as well, and where this type of work can also assist overseas. So back at Huron, I'm a strategy guy if I'm at Rotman. I'm a all-around everything under the jack of all trades at Huron. So at Huron, I do teach operations management, and one of the things I found it interesting from the Florida folks was that you guys are working on a number of case studies and developing additional studies. Again, and when I, as an academic, look out to where those case studies should come from, I'm not really looking at it the same way I do as a consultant. As a consultant, I'm looking for opportunities to assist and to apply the things that I'm thinking about into the marketplace. For the student, I'm thinking about what really fits in terms of the actual core learning. And one area that I find that, and I've spoken already with a few folks from operations, and we're going to hear our next speaker speak to some interesting things, but I found from my personal experience that I wasn't able, when I look at the Harvard list or the Ivy list, to come up with operations topics that are ideal. So I have a client that's in Germany, and it's a very opportunistic relationship that I established with this remanufactured parts truck part organization, and they had some great system in place. They were doing a number of wonderful things, and lo and behold, one of their people came over and was my student. So it was an opportunity for me when I saw the issue in that particular organization to change and develop some new material. So again, not necessarily moving into the experiential space here, but I was able to go over there, learn about their business, and now in the process of finalizing a couple cases in an area that, again, as a liberal arts school teaching management, as a school that is not at the graduate level, I found that it was hard to find the sweet spot in terms of case development. So I think now I can, as the academic consultant, learn about their business, take from that, and I guess get to the right level in terms of where case development goes. So that's one of the things to consider. Speak to this slide, Bill, but I'll let you.
The next series of slides pick up on the points I made earlier in regards to who benefits, and I talked about three benefactors in terms of external. One is a benefit for academics who consult is the clients. So the academics themselves, as Jan just said, provide a wealth of information regarding current practice and implementation challenges. So I think you did speak to that when you talked about management by walking around. We're current, au courant, so to speak, in terms of what we talk about in the classroom. I feel like I'm just dishing traditional academics, but my gosh, it's not church, we're not purists, and we need to be part of the world. So that's one. I'm just going to keep going here. I've had no sense of time because we started late. How are we doing?
I was going to give you a 5-minute warning.
5-minute warning.
It's about 7
Well, we got to
minutes.
slide 6 to 23. That's pretty good. All right. There's benefits for the clients as well. You don't give someone with Celtic background a chance to talk. It takes 35 minutes to introduce themselves. Benefits for the clients. Well, they seek advice from us because it's quite different than the services provided by traditional consulting services. Okay. We tend to bring some unique insights into it. I think it is different. Some of the challenges with consulting services as well, and to be practitioners, we're also pointing to ourselves, is we have a package. We'll bring package A to this problem, package B to that problem, and we've certainly seen that in the past. So we can approach this differently, and we can expend different kinds of resources and spend different amounts of time on issues because we count time and resources in a different way. So that can be quite beneficial for the clients. Opportunity to early adopt points of view at the cusp of research activities can prove a source of advantage. So we can. I mean, it's not a panacea, I'm not saying we are, but we can do something of a different nature. And then for the students, this is where for me, this is the most important part. The other stuff is fine, but this is the most important. Experiential opportunities with academic consultants tend to be more representative of rural fluency when blending theory with practice. So we had the privilege of doing the, orientation week talk to the class this year, the incoming first-year students. And the first thing we said was, between us, we have 40 years work experience. We didn't have to say anything else. All right, that really got the students' attention, and for the next 30 minutes, you could hear a pin drop in the lecture hall as we talked about what our program was about. Now, here's the challenges. Well, I don't know what's happening in your respective academic settings that you represent, but But here's what's happening in ours. There's a challenge in enrollment. And our program, Management Organizational Studies, first year students enrollment is equal to all other departments and faculties combined. All right, so there's a bit of a green-eyed monster there from our peers in philosophy and French and global studies, etc. Right?
Yeah, and I think where my personal story, I think Bill shares this, is that as the academic consultant, and we have this little triangle, you know, what do we put inside is the glue that melds those pieces together and somehow brings the holistic aspect to the classroom. So we certainly feel that as we're developing some, augmenting our program, adding new courses and delivering material, you know, I want to be able to bring in those liberal arts studies. You know, I think it was Don Tapscott recently said, should we add the extra A to STEM to come up with STEAM or something to that? So we actually are not authorized chartered to teach science classes, but I would probably take that as a reasonable.
Let me have a minute. So this second block is particularly important as well, because I think as academics, by continuing to be practitioners, it changes our mindset. Jan has thrown the term around a few times, and I want to reinforce that term, opportunistic. All right? So here's an opportunistic moment that comes from being, I think, in the business world. We don't have a lot of good case studies for second year, third year business students. I teach HR, amongst other things. For 2 years now, I've been having my students create case studies as an assignment, and they've been pretty good. So this year, I approached the publisher of the textbook, who produces 3 or 4 texts. I won't give them a pitch because they pay when they come here. They have online learning tools, and I said, here's what our students are doing. And I do a poster session at the end of the year. Case studies look great. We do a little fair about it, so they can get some feedback from other students. How would you like to publish the best of these, either in your text or online? They came back and look what they had. They said, we have 3 online resources that support our text, and we will. So the students now are going to get publishing credit. And then they came back and they said, and we'll give them an honorarium. And we'll give the university an honorarium. And will you be our subject expert on this? And I said, yes, but you can't give me an honorarium. There is an ethical line. I know what it is. So you give my honorarium to the university as well. But that's an opportunistic moment. That's not an example of us bringing consulting into the classroom. That's us using that mindset that we have from our current practice to enrich our classroom learning. So it works in a lot of different ways, I guess, in a very circuitous route. I guess what I'm trying to say, it works in a lot of different ways, and it changes the way we think as well as academics. So finally, war stories, because I only have like 90 seconds left. Enhancing in-class experiences and timeliness in consulting work. Absolutely. So if we can relate to a theoretical point where practical information that we're just engaged in is a wonderful learning moment. The other wonderful learning moment we have, and I'm going to have to say this because I was very impressed with the DPAs, and I hope some of you go on to full-fledged academic work, is we can pull back from our experience. I had I'm teaching a very dry subject Wednesday before our Homeric flight here, and that was performance appraisals in an HR setting. And I can talk about 20 years of conducting performance appraisals, and I can talk about the challenges and bureaucracy of it. The last, I guess some people say real job I had 244 direct reports. It was a fairly large institution. We can talk about the bureaucracy and how it didn't work, and the students can hear that real learning moment, and that's important. So that's just an example. And you take the driest subject because you have real life learning, and then here's the hook, and move on. And if you will meet us afterwards at the bar, we'll go from slide 8 to 23 with the rest of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.